My name's Brielle. I walked into the bank that day needing just $100 to cover an emergency tow. My sister, Clarissa, the branch manager, laughed in my face. In front of everyone, she said, "We don't give free money to losers." I didn't respond. I just walked over to the terminal, typed in, "Withdraw $5,000, and pressed enter. The system froze. Her smile disappeared, and she dropped to her knees, instantly. Before I take you to where it all began, comment where you're watching from. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and breathe deep. You're about to feel every word. I grew up in someone else's spotlight. That someone was my older sister, Clarissa. She was the golden child, the straight-A student with perfect handwriting and a shelf full of trophies. Head cheerleader by sophomore year, homecoming queen. Married a banker right after college, promoted to assistant manager at her bank before she turned 27. She was everything small-town parents dreamed of, especially our mom. I, on the other hand, was the weird one. Quiet, a little too curious for my own good. I liked drawing, coding, building odd projects with duct tape and discarded wires from my uncle's garage. I was messy, inconsistent, the kind of kid who'd ace an essay and fail a math quiz the same week. Clarissa had her room painted in soft beige and had a label maker before she hit puberty. I had sketch pads and disassembled hard drives under my bed. She read The Economist. I read blogs about front-end frameworks. I spent most of high school trying to disappear from her shadow, which stretched from the dining table to every family reunion and PTA meeting. Mom would say it without saying it. "Why can't you be more like Clarissa?" At first, it was subtle, just glances, comparisons, little things like Clarissa would have remembered to iron her blouse, or Clarissa always cleaned up after dinner without being asked. But it grew. By the time I was in college, I couldn't go a week without hearing her name dropped as some gold standard I was failing to reach. And Clarissa didn't help. She never came out and said she looked down on me. No. That would have been too obvious. Clarissa's genius was in the way she smiled while cutting you, like when she saw me wearing a vintage denim jacket I loved and said, "Oh wow, that's bold, I could never pull off that." Or when she visited my tiny campus apartment and wrinkled her nose like she'd walked into a crime scene. "You don't have a dishwasher?" she asked. "I am the dishwasher," I joked. She gave a tight smile. "Of course you are." She always made her superiority look effortless. When I got my first real job at a scrappy little tech startup in Denver, I was proud. It didn't pay much, but I was learning, contributing, growing. I worked 14-hour days some weeks and still made less than half what she did. At Christmas, I tried to tell her about what we were building. She blinked. "So, it's like another app?" "It's a financial planning tool that syncs across platforms and helps people." "That's adorable," she cut in, sipping wine. "You always were the creative one." Adorable. That word stayed with me. Not because it was cruel on the surface, but because I knew what it meant coming from her. Adorable, childish, useless, harmless, small. The truth was, I was trying to build something real, something valuable. But to her, I'd never be more than the little sister fumbling through life, always one step behind. It didn't help that I'd spent most of my 20s helping care for our Aunt Moira, who'd been diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer just before I graduated. I moved in with her because no one else could. Clarissa said she was too busy with her promotion and planning her wedding. So I cooked, cleaned, managed medications, took calls from insurance companies, and watched someone I loved slip away by inches. I put my career on pause, delayed freelance gigs, lived off savings and ramen noodles. Clarissa sent flowers once, from Amazon. When Aunt Moira passed, Clarissa didn't even come to the memorial. She was in Mexico for a financial conference. But when people in town asked about us, she'd always smile and say, "Oh, Brielle's doing her own thing. She's the free spirit." Translation, the unreliable one. It was always like that. She was the portrait daughter. I was the sketch in the corner of the frame. And I let it be that way for a long time. Because honestly, it was easier to be underestimated than to constantly defend my choices. But the worst part, I started believing her. I started thinking maybe I was just floating. Maybe I really was a joke. A failed prototype of the real daughter my parents bragged about at church and in the grocery store line. And when you believe you're less than, you stop fighting. You go quiet. You shrink. And that's exactly what I did, until the day the shrinking stopped. The humiliations didn't come all at once. They came in little scenes, moments that lived on a loop in the back of my mind like tiny knives that never stopped turning. There was the time Clarissa rejected me for a loan, in front of her friends. I was 27 and my car had just died completely on the side of the interstate. I was still freelancing part-time back then, juggling 3 small contracts and applying to everything under the sun. I called Clarissa, voice shaking, and asked if I could borrow a few $100s just to get me through until my client paid the invoice. She didn't even pause. "Brielle, I'm not a bank," she said. "You've got to stop expecting handouts." I didn't expect. "I'm sorry, but no," she cut in. "You never pay people back. It's just not smart to keep enabling you." We were standing outside a cafe, and her coworkers, 2 women and a guy in suits, were right there, sipping lattes, watching, smirking. I felt the back of my neck flush, but I just nodded. "Okay, I understand." "Good," she said, with a little too much relief. "Proud of you for asking, though." She said that like I was a child who'd asked for permission to go outside after dinner. I didn't ask her for help again. Then there was the family barbecue. It was 4th of July. Clarissa showed up with her husband in their brand new silver SUV, music playing softly from speakers in the trunk. She handed out cupcakes in individual clamshell containers with personalized toothpick flags. I drove up 20 minutes late in my dented Corolla with the rusted rear door that only opened from the inside. As I got out, balancing a bowl of potato salad, Clarissa turned to everyone and said loudly, "Make room, the broke girl's here." Everyone laughed. Even my cousins. I smiled, forced, shaky, said nothing. It was always like that. A slow erosion of dignity. Public, intentional. Dressed up as just a joke. But the thing that finally broke me wasn't public. It came wrapped in shiny paper, tied with silver ribbon, and placed quietly under the Christmas tree. She handed it to me during our annual family gathering. Her nails were perfectly manicured in a shade called banker's blush. She said nothing, just smiled. When I unwrapped it later that night, I found a budgeting book titled, "For People Who Don't Understand Money Yet." Inside the cover, she'd written in her signature slanted cursive, "Hang in there, sis. 2023 might be your year, see." I closed the book slowly, my heart in my throat. I didn't cry in front of anyone. I waited until I got home, sat on my floor, and let the tears come in silence. No sobbing, just hot, exhausted drops tracking down my cheeks. I didn't respond, didn't text her, didn't say thank you. I just went quiet. But that night, something in me hardened. I'd had enough. If she wanted to see me as a joke, fine, let her. But I was done living in the punchline. In the weeks that followed, I poured myself into work like I never had before. Not out of rage, out of clarity. I wasn't going to prove her wrong. I was going to prove me right. I doubled down on my freelancing, ghostwriting financial content for blogs, newsletters, and YouTube scripts. I built a spreadsheet template that tracked debt paydown and sold it on Etsy. Then I launched a micro course on personal budgeting that made a few $100s in the first week alone. They were small wins, quiet ones, but they were mine. Then came the email. My old startup, the one that fizzled out years ago, it had been bought. A large fintech company wanted our tech stack. I still had shares. They were modest, forgotten, but now they were worth something. I opened my bank app one morning and saw the balance. $5.3 million. I blinked, refreshed the page, checked the fine print. It was real. The world went quiet, not in a panicked way, not dizzying, just still. I sat back and took the deepest breath I'd taken in a decade. I didn't scream, didn't dance, didn't even smile. I just let the truth settle into my chest. I was free from Clarissa, from being pitied, from being adorable. I no longer needed anyone's validation or permission or forgiveness, and I didn't tell anyone, not even my closest friend Lena, not even Liza, my therapist. I didn't change my clothes, my car, or my address, because I knew something Clarissa never would. Power is quietest when it's real. I didn't want applause. I wanted one moment. One single moment where all the years of shame and mockery turned to dust in her mouth. And I knew, when the time was right, I'd get it. It happened on a Thursday, late morning, early September. I remember because the air smelled like someone had just cut their lawn, and my car had just started making that sputtering, gasping noise it does before it gives up entirely. I was halfway to a client meeting across town when the engine light blinked, flickered, and then died. Just like that, right at the corner of Sycamore and Ridge. I managed to coast into a grocery store parking lot and pull out my phone to call a tow truck. They said they'd come, but only if I paid cash up front, $100. It was a small thing. A blip. I had the money, of course, but my debit card had a low daily withdrawal limit. I hadn't changed it since the lean years, partly out of habit, partly out of paranoia. And the only way I could get more than $60 in cash that day was to go into the bank and ask for it. The nearest branch? Clarissa's. I sat in my car for 5 full minutes debating whether I could stomach the scene. I could already hear her voice, already see the smirk. But it was close. It was fast. And part of me wanted to see her. I got out, smoothed my shirt, and walked through the heavy glass doors. The moment I stepped in, I saw her. Clarissa stood behind the counter in a navy pencil dress, hair tied in that signature no-stray hair bun. She was laughing with a male teller, hand resting lightly on the desk. Her laugh stopped mid-sound when her eyes landed on me. She straightened, slid behind the desk, and walked out into the lobby, heels clicking on the tile floor. "Well, well," she said, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "If it isn't my little sister, need help opening a savings account for your dog?" I didn't react. Just stepped forward in line and said, "I need to withdraw $100 in cash." She cocked her head. "From what account?" she asked, pulling up my info without waiting. She tapped a few keys, her brows raised. "Oh, Brielle, overdrafted again? You're 30. This is pathetic." Someone in line behind me chuckled. A teller looked away quickly. The security guard near the front doors gave a little shake of his head. I felt heat creep up my neck, but my face stayed neutral. "I just need the cash," I repeated. Clarissa turned toward a young male employee, gestured lightly, and said, "Can you get Marcus up here? I think we've got a customer who's confused." Another snicker from somewhere behind me. Clarissa smiled tightly, leaned in, and whispered, "You know we're not a charity, right?" That was it. I didn't say another word. I turned and walked to the self-service terminal on the far side of the lobby. The room buzzed with soft conversations, the shuffling of papers, the low drone of customer service. I swiped my card, entered my code. A second screen asked for biometric confirmation. I scanned my fingerprint. The screen blinked. Then loaded a new interface, one Clarissa had never seen, a restricted access system tied to a high-security private wealth account. I typed, "Withdraw $5,000, then pressed enter. The screen froze. The terminal went quiet. A soft alert tone chimed, once, twice, then a third time. Red flags triggered instantly. Across the room, Clarissa's desktop flickered black, then locked. A soft buzz sounded on her headset. She reached for her mouse, confused. "Why did it?" she began, frowning. She tapped keys. Nothing responded. Behind her, the assistant branch manager stepped out of his office, phone to his ear. He glanced toward the terminal I stood at, then toward me, then to Clarissa. "Clarissa," voice tight, "can I see you? Now." She walked stiffly toward him. They stepped into the glass office just feet away from the lobby. Through the window, I watched her nod, frown, speak, gesture, then freeze. She looked at me, the blood drained from her face. She turned back to the screen. The manager pointed to a line of code. She looked again, then she mouthed something I couldn't hear. Her mouth barely moved. "No." The manager responded quietly, handed her a folder, and walked out. She stayed in the office, staring, shaking. I turned around, walked calmly back toward the counter, and waited by the side. People whispered. 2 tellers stopped what they were doing to look over. Clarissa came out of the office slowly, her heels suddenly sounding too loud. She looked 10 years older than she had 10 minutes ago. Her voice, when it came, was brittle. "Brielle, can we speak in my office?" I smiled, soft, controlled. "No need," I said. "I just came to make a withdrawal." The man who'd laughed in line now stared at me like he was seeing a ghost. Clarissa swallowed. "Why didn't you ever?" "You wanted a show," I said. "Let's give them one." And I turned back to the terminal to let the silence swallow the room. I used to think wealth came with a sound, the clink of wine glasses, the beep of a new car unlocking, the rustle of $100 bills being stacked or spent. Clarissa made money loud. It followed her in heels and designer handbags and passive insults dressed as concern. But when I started building mine, it didn't sound like that. It sounded like keyboard clicks at 2 a.m., like the scratch of a pen against a paper planner, like the quiet buzz of my secondhand monitor firing up each morning before sunrise. After my startup folded, I didn't panic, not because I wasn't scared, I was, but because I'd been through worse. Watching your dreams fizzle after years of building them is a special kind of grief. It hits quiet, but deep. So I got small, focused. I took on ghostwriting jobs for financial blogs, long data-heavy articles for credit unions, investment newsletters, budgeting apps. No byline, just solid paychecks. I wrote about Roth IRAs, compound interest, financial trauma, how to negotiate rent while your credit score doesn't define your worth. It was ironic. Writing about money while my own account hovered at 3 digits. But it gave me purpose, direction. Then I created my first budgeting spreadsheet template. It was basic, color-coded, clean. I uploaded to Gumroad, priced it at $10, and posted about it once on Reddit. It sold 37 copies in a week. I made $370 in passive income while brushing my teeth, riding the bus, watching Netflix reruns. That $370 felt like $1 million. So I made more. A debt tracker, a freelancer tax estimator, a mini course on how to build an emergency fund when you're broke. They weren't flashy, but they were honest. And they were helpful. Then came the plugin. A small bank in the Midwest needed a better budgeting visualization tool for their app. A friend of a friend passed them my name. I mocked up something in 4 days. The bank bought the rights in 4 weeks. It wasn't viral, it wasn't sexy, but it worked, and it paid. Around that time, my friend Maya, an accountant by day, crypto nerd by night, invited me to a small Telegram group of women investing micro amounts in blockchain projects. Nothing sketchy, just cautious, research-driven plays. I put in $50 here, $200 there. I diversified into dividend stocks, ETFs, and real estate trusts. And I didn't tell a soul. I kept my day job. Shared a tiny apartment with a friend who thought I was too frugal for my own good. We split groceries, DIY'd furniture, and watched Hulu with ads. I took no vacations. I didn't upgrade my phone. Every paycheck got split into 4 buckets: taxes, bills, savings, reinvestment. I automated everything. By the time the startup emailed me about their acquisition and my long-forgotten shares, I already had $300,000 saved. The payout from those shares brought my balance to $5.3 million. Just like that. And still, I didn't change anything. I didn't buy a new car, didn't move, didn't even eat out more. Because I knew what power could do to people, especially people like Clarissa. She would have tried to own it, weaponize it, make it hers somehow. I didn't want that. I wanted quiet power. A freedom so complete it didn't need to be proven. People think revenge is about slamming doors, shouting "I told you so's," showing off receipts. But the best revenge? It's quiet growth. It's outgrowing people so fully they no longer recognize your silhouette. It's building a life they couldn't imagine, and knowing you don't owe them a tour. It's waiting, not to strike, but to finally stop being silent. That day at the bank, it wasn't about the $5 million. It was about the girl who everyone thought would never have more than lint in her wallet and worry in her eyes. The girl who stayed quiet while they laughed. And the woman who came back, not to hurt them, but to show them who she became in the silence they left her in. The bank's internal system was fast, but not faster than Clarissa's panic. The moment I hit withdraw $5,000, the branch's high net worth protocol kicked in automatically. A freeze on my account for verification. Tier 2 alert sent directly to upper management. A call dispatched to the branch's assistant director to authenticate the transaction in person. Clarissa didn't know that yet, but her screen had gone black, her access revoked, and the moment she saw the terminal light up red across the lobby, she felt it. That her sister was not who she thought she was anymore. The assistant branch manager, an older man in a crisp gray suit, came out of his office with a strange expression. His nameplate said Jerry Martinez. I remembered it from a plaque on the wall the last time I was here, years ago. He approached Clarissa with a folder in his hand, speaking low enough that no one could hear. Clarissa looked at him, then at the folder, then at me. Something inside her cracked. Her mouth opened slightly, This can't be right. Jerry tilted the folder toward her. She leaned in, scanning the screen again and again. My name, my photo, my net worth, my status, VIP client, security level 3, authentication required. Clarissa's face drained of all its color. She walked over to me slowly, her heels no longer clicking like weapons, more like stumbles. Her hands trembled as she approached. Brielle, she said, voice brittle, can we talk? Just in the side office, please? I didn't move. I didn't blink. Loud enough for the front row of customers to hear, I said, no need. I just came to make a withdrawal. Several heads turned. Clarissa flinched like I'd slapped her. She motioned again, more urgently. I didn't know. I mean, why didn't you ever say anything? You never said. I raised an eyebrow. What would have been the point? Her lips trembled. Look, I didn't mean what I said earlier. I thought you were still. Pathetic? I offered. Overdrafted? A burden? She shook her head frantically. No, I didn't mean. God, Brielle, please don't escalate this. Don't report me. If the regional team hears what I said, if corporate finds out, and then it happened. Right there in front of the counter, in front of customers, employees, the security guard trying not to stare, Clarissa dropped to her knees. Please, she said, her voice shaking. I'll lose everything. The irony was so sharp, I almost choked on it. This woman, who once laughed at me for driving a beat-up car, who rejected a $200 loan in front of strangers, who gifted me a budgeting book titled For People Who Don't Understand Money, was now begging, trembling, crumbling at the feet of the sister she never saw coming. I didn't raise my voice, didn't gloat, didn't even flinch. I walked to the teller window, still stunned into silence. The teller, young, maybe 22, looked in with awe and a hint of fear. He spoke softly. How much would you like to withdraw, ma'am? I smiled gently. $100, please. He blinked. I gave him the account number. He typed it in. Verified. His fingers froze mid-keystroke. He didn't say a word. Just handed me 5 crisp 20s. I turned around. Clarissa was still kneeling, red in the face now, trying to pretend she'd dropped something. But her mascara was smudged, her breathing shallow. I tucked the cash into my wallet, walked past her and said, loud enough for her to hear, maybe only her, you laughed when I had nothing. Now you're crying when I barely touched anything. She looked up and saw it, the version of me she never believed existed. I didn't need to scream, didn't need to punish her. Her own pride had done that for me. I walked out of the bank without a single backward glance. The air outside felt new, not like freedom, but like truth. News travels fast in small towns, faster than facts, faster than shame, faster than apologies. By the following week, Clarissa had been quietly transferred to a different branch 2 towns over. No official explanation, no public reprimand, just a shuffled name tag and a story about organizational restructuring. But the whispers were louder than any memo. People talked. Employees speculated. A woman from the grocery store I hadn't seen in years cornered me by the canned soups and whispered, "Was it true? Did you really?" I just smiled, paid for my groceries in cash, and left without answering. Then came the family. A cousin texted first, "Hey, just heard from Aunt Debbie. Said something happened at the bank?" Then my mom called. Her voice carried that familiar combination of worry and disappointment that I'd grown up with. "I don't understand why you would do that to your sister," she said. "Humiliate her like that, in front of everyone." I waited, let the silence hang. "She humiliated me for 10 years, I said softly. I stayed quiet, once. There was no response, just a click, a sigh, and a weak, "You girls need to fix this." But we didn't. Clarissa never called, never texted, never wrote. And I didn't chase her because something had shifted in me. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need her shame. I just needed peace. And I had it now. I bought a condo on the east side of town. Nothing flashy, but bright, airy, with a balcony that caught the morning light. Paid in full, no mortgage, no roommates, no shared walls with strangers arguing at midnight. I furnished it slowly, intentionally. A couch that fit just right, a desk I dreamed of owning for years. A framed print over my bed that read, "You owe no one your silence." Work shifted too. I turned my freelancing into a proper business. Hired 2 part-time contractors. Built a website. Launched new tools, one for single moms budgeting on inconsistent income, another for women rebuilding after divorce or debt. I started hosting virtual workshops. At first, it was 5 people, then 20. Then I opened a mentorship program for young women in tech and finance. Girls who were just starting out, who hadn't yet been laughed out of rooms, who hadn't yet been told they were adorable instead of competent. One of my first mentees was a girl named Kira, 24, bright, brave, stuck in a toxic job with a boss who belittled her in meetings and sent her friendly, late-night messages. She didn't know what to do, so we met weekly. We worked on her resume, practiced scripts for setting boundaries, built a financial runway so she could leave safely. 3 months later, she did. She texted me a photo of herself at a new desk, smiling like someone who'd finally come up for air. "Thank you," she wrote. "You helped me believe I deserved better." I stared at that text for a long time, because that's what I'd wanted all along. Not to break people, to help them rebuild. The power to destroy Clarissa was still there. I had the resources, the credibility, the legal grounds if I'd wanted to file a formal complaint, write a public post, torch her career. But I didn't. Because real power isn't about punishment. It's about peace. And I finally understood that peace isn't silent. It's not empty. It's full of space, of light, of the quiet confidence that comes from knowing who you are with no one else's opinion required. Clarissa might never understand what she lost when she lost me. That's okay, because I finally know what I've gained by walking away. These days, I don't wake up with dread. There's no anxiety waiting for me in the shadows of the morning. No internal voice rehearsing excuses. No quiet panic over whether I'll disappoint someone who already decided I was never enough. Instead, I stretch, breathe, make tea. Some mornings I water the balcony garden, basil, thyme, and little cherry tomatoes that surprise me with how stubbornly they survive even when I forget to tend them. Other days, I sit in stillness, letting sunlight spill across the hardwood floor, warming my feet while jazz hums softly in the background. I never understood why quiet mornings felt like luxury, but they do. Peace isn't loud, it's consistent, it's earned. I still live simply. No luxury SUV, no brand new penthouse, no constant reminders of look how far I've come. Because the biggest luxury I've ever owned is control over my time, my energy, and who I let speak into my life. Once a year, I travel solo. I don't tell many people. I just go. Last fall, it was Vermont. I hiked under orange trees, stayed in a cabin with a fireplace and no Wi-Fi. I brought books, not an itinerary. And when I came back, I didn't feel behind. I felt whole. No one tracks my movements now. No one questions my choices. No one rolls their eyes when I share my goals. That part of my life? Gone. Clarissa still exists, of course. She's in another branch now. Still smiling tightly, still walking like the world's made of mirrors. And she's the only one worth reflecting. We haven't spoken since the day at the bank. But sometimes I wonder if she ever thinks of it. That moment. The one where the room went still, the screen froze, and all her imagined superiority crumbled around her like sand. People like Clarissa need to believe you're beneath them to feel tall. Let them. You don't have to convince anyone of your worth. Your dignity isn't found in screaming back. It's in walking out with your head high, your voice calm, and your hands steady enough to hold your future. I've learned that the people who talk loudest about your flaws are usually terrified of your silence. Because silence isn't weakness. It's strength, choosing not to entertain what doesn't deserve an audience. I've spent the last year pouring into others what I used to beg from the wrong people: support, encouragement, respect. I teach young women how to manage their money, how to set boundaries, how to build without apology. Because for every Clarissa in the world, there's a Brielle trying to prove she belongs. And I want her to know she already does. Maybe Clarissa will never understand what she lost the moment she labeled me pathetic. But I know exactly what I gained the moment I typed, "Withdraw $5 million. I reclaimed every inch of space she took from me. She dropped to her knees, and I didn't flinch. Have you ever been dismissed by someone who didn't know your worth? Tell me in the comments. Let's build a space where quiet power wins. And if this story moved you, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to remember. Your story isn't over. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait. Thank you for being here. You matter, and so does your silence, especially when it finally becomes your voice.